Hello everyone, it is your resin 3D printing god, Akuma Mods, back again with a FDM review. Yes, so we have the Tenlog D3 PRO here that was sent to us by Tenlog to review. Let's take a look. So Tenlog sent us this printer to basically give us our thoughts on it. And I'll be honest, I'm absolutely blown away by this printer. I couldn't tell you how many people told me to basically just trash this printer. Don't even waste your time on a review. Just negative comments throughout the entire time. But I will have to say that while there was that skepticism of that from people that have reviewed this before, this is actually an updated version, and I just got word that now they are improving this even more, so there is a new version coming out as well. But this one is still available. You can pick it up on Amazon right now for $499. I'm sure you can probably get it cheaper than that at other places, but right now that's a pretty good deal for something of this size. The build volume is similar to a CR10. It's a 300 by 350, so it does have a good size build volume. However, if you guys do or do not know, this is an Idex printer, so that means we can print with two different colors at the same time. And it's much better than a dual color printer that has a 2-in, 1-out style hot end. You don't have a lot of clogging issues. You really just don't have any major issues of it. It's basically you have two printers here, essentially. That's what it does. The only major downfall of having a printer set up like this is it takes up a little bit extra room because it is kind of wide. Because it needs to park these extruders outside of the build volume while the other one is working. So there are some pluses and minuses to an IDEX printer, but in my opinion, the pluses kind of outweigh the minuses in this case. Now, going back to the whole negative comments and everything like that, and people saying that this printer was an absolute disaster, I personally have not had any major issues that wasn't my own fault. Now, I will let you know that this extruder you might see has some weird stuff on it. That's because it's got a major blob stuck to the hot end. So before I pulled it for this video, that's what happened. So unfortunately, I don't really have many prints. I actually only have one to show you, but really the two major prints that I did on this printer, and more or less the second one, absolutely blows this printer out of the water for any other type of printer that stands up against it. It is just a workhorse. So I know they've done some improvements with the extruder. Before, they used to have the connector at the extruder end. Well, they have now reversed that. And I know it's still kind of weird having the plugs and everything going up and over, but there's nothing really to hold it. Now, obviously, if you got like an ID tag, you can probably rig something up and kind of rig it up a little bit and get it to the way that you want, or maybe even mock something up to hang underneath the bar here. But I think this style is okay for this type of printer. It's all locked in. Nothing really major is going to happen. So you should be in good hands. This does have a glass plate or a Boral glass, whatever the specific type of checker pattern glass plates that they have, which I am usually not a big fan of. I always have to have some sort of bed adhesion when I'm utilizing these beds, but this one kind of stuck pretty well. However, with the second print, I did use some bed adhesion products because of the type of print it was. I didn't want it to fail in any way, shape, or form, so I just put it down for a little bit extra insurance for the prints. So my first print here was actually this little kendo bot, and I will have this link down in the description here. This is from Cults 3D, and I printed it up. I had some extra filament laying around, just little bits. And one side of it is yellow, and the other side is gold, and it printed perfectly. So one of the, I guess, kind of downfalls of IDEX printing is you do have to kind of slice up your models. At least that's how I'm known doing it. I've done it for years. So usually you take the model, you split it in half, or you cut it into whatever section you need to. And I personally use Simplified 3D. It's just got a much more fluid system for multicolor, especially for IDEX, than Cura does. But you can still get away with it on Cura. It just takes a little bit more getting used to, I guess. But the simplified 3D profile just automatically blends everything together. You have your specific color set in one, and your your extruder one set in one color, and your extruder two set in another color, so you can signify what is printing what, and you can change it from there. So really, really cool that they do all that stuff and how it's set up. But I've had nothing but good things. Like I said, I've had one failure, and it was totally my fault because I didn't re-level this while I moved it. So I hit a print to go, and it failed epically. But other than that, it's been printing perfectly. Besides that error, the first print that I did was that KendoBot. The second one, like I said, that's the one that really made this printer stand out of anything that I've ever printed on an FDM printer in my entire time doing this. I decided we were doing a TikTok challenge, and basically it was the Cinderwing Coil Dragon. So some of you guys may or may not know who Cinderwing is. I will link that down in the description. They have a Patreon. They are on Cults 3D. Most of you guys know the dragons that she does and everything. Well, this one was a specific style dragon, and it was about a 11.5 foot long dragon when we were all done. And when I imported the profile from Simplified 3D from Tenlog, I forgot to set my supports up because unfortunately when you set in a new profile, it gathers everything. Your supports, your machine settings, everything for the machine is set from the manufacturer. Well, I have supports that literally use no tools. You rip them away with your fingers and you have no problem with it. Unfortunately, like I said, I forgot to reset that. I wasn't thinking. So when I printed it, it printed beautifully. However, when we got to removing stuff, it was a disaster because we printed with a brim, which I never ever do. And then it also printed with a little bit heavier supports that stuck a little too well to the print. And then ultimately, because it had a brim, it wasn't properly tuned to remove from the brim. So it kind of squished and yeah, it fused to the print. So we ended up having to get rid of that and it ended up breaking into pieces. Uh, we did print it in a rainbow color, and I believe it was black. Yeah, it was rainbow and black. So we had rainbow on one side, black on the other, and we basically did like couple layers black, couple layers rainbow, and so on and so forth. And it pretty much we maxed out most of the build volume. We put this dragon up at 200%. So again, this is a 12-foot dragon. But the thing that makes this is not the fact that it was a big print or anything like that. It was the fact that it was a 14-day print, consistent printing for 14 days right out of the box. I couldn't even imagine any printer doing that right from the get-go with as much bad history as this printer has. Like I said, anywhere that you click around, you're going to see, oh, well, it's a terrible printer. I had issues with the extruder. I had issues with the main board, a power supply, what have you. Every issue you could think possible, people have basically said this is not worth the time and money. Chalk it up right there with the JG Maker one. I forget what the name of it is, but it was supposedly just as bad as it. And I'm here to tell you, I at least had a great printing experience. I mean, I mostly do resin printing, as I start my intros as the resin printing god. I pretty much exclusively use resin, but I do these FDM reviews, and I do have a couple of them around because they're just convenient to have. If I need to make something that I don't really care, I'll just set it in print, and somebody wants a little bit cheaper model and doesn't require higher detail. More or less what I use it for is like useful prints, stuff that I'm going to use for like storage bins, bigger type things, you know, stuff that I'm going to mount on a wall that I have all on the wall here. You guys can't see, just out of camera shot. That type of stuff that's going to hold up, where resin usually is more brittle, it breaks, what have you. But yeah, I mean, this printer has been printing perfectly fine. I've had no issues with it. Like I said, unfortunately, all I have is just this one print, because all the other stuff that I've been printing on here has basically been customer prints. So I can't even show you guys the results of the prints. So really, you're just kind of taking my word for it. But you guys can see on my TikTok channel about the 14-day dragon and the multiple updates that are on it. You'll have to scroll through quite a few videos because it was a little bit ago, but yeah, it was a fantastic print, my longest print to date, my biggest print to date, and probably the most plastic I've used, at least in terms of FDM, to date. So, but other than that, I mean, the printer does boast a lot of cool things. It's got a nice screen on here, and we do have filament runout sensors on both of these. These do work, and they work very, very well. Then you also have these little purge buckets. Now, or I'm sorry, they're not really purge buckets. They're more like purge areas. They do include files to make purge buckets, which is really nice. That's something you usually don't see manufacturers like include files for someone to print off. Either they include them or they just let you go willy-nilly. So that's really, really cool that they include it on the SD card. So if you feel like you want to print some extra purge buckets, then you can. And I do highly suggest getting purge buckets, because otherwise you'll have tons of scraps on the sides here and the sides here, and basically anywhere where this sits. So that's the major downfall, I guess, of this printer, is just the cleanup of all the purging that happens with these prints. So that's the only like major issue that I've ever come across with this printer. But like I said, other than that, it's been working fantastically. I will say that the extruder 2 setup is a little weird to level it. You basically have to, you know, play around with it on the back end here, because that's how you level it, and you use an Allen key to do that. So it's not that great of a setup, but I mean, for a cheaper Idex style printer, because again, you're essentially getting two printers, two color printer, for the price of one, really. So I mean, there are some things that they will have to slack on a little bit, and that's one of them. It's not the end of the world, but I wish it was a little bit easier to dial in so you can get that correct squish. But right out of the box, I didn't have any issues with it. It's leveled perfectly, and we basically set it to print, and it printed this Kendo bot right away, no problems. And yeah, it was just fantastic. Setting this printer up is super easy as well. It was basically like 4 bolts. Well, technically it was 8 bolts with all of this stuff and everything, and then you have to actually put on the extruder. So it's a little more of a build kit than most people would like. But again, if you're wanting a dual color printer, this is something that you definitely want. This is a great printer for anybody that's looking for more of a budget friendly printer and looking for dual colors. Again, it's much easier than a dual color printer that is a 2-in-1 style. Now, like I said, that has 2 filaments that run into one hot end system. There's a lot of clogging that happens on there, and again, it just doesn't happen with here, because not only that, you have a direct drive system, which a lot of people love. That means you can print TPU, you can print 2 different colors, you can go real crazy with this printer, and again, on a budget. So with, like I said, $4.99 right now on Amazon, that was fantastic. And even when we did the unboxing of this, they had a deal where they had $150 off, I think it was. And then they had another deal where it was like $100 off. Then you could also use the coupon code to get $150 off. Unfortunately, those are already expired, but at the time that we were doing the unboxing and doing initial printing with this, that's what they were providing for us and the members of my 3D printing for noobs group. So it's fantastic. You can get this thing really, really cheap at that time. But again, they're still very cheap at $400. And like I said, for the build volume, 300 by 300 by 350. That is a fantastic build volume that should get you any type of printing for like large helmets. So for those who want to get fancy with some Star Wars helmets, like the Mandalorian helmet with the what do they call that? Like the engravings in it. I forget the exact, like ornamental. So if you want to do that and like have different colors on the ornamental, you can go ahead and do that. Again, you're just going to have to deal with the purge buckets and everything. And even the purge bucket files that they include, I don't really suggest printing them. I would really more or less suggest modifying them to hold a little bit more because they're just more or less like small troughs. So you really have to kind of dump them out every maybe 2 prints, depending on how crazy you're getting. But they will fill up very easily. The wipe systems that they have on here are really, really nice. They have some nice like brass bristles or metallic bristles, which I know is kind of a no-no to some people because if you hit your heater cartridge or your thermistor, you can short circuit it. But these do have silicone socks on them to protect them from anything like that. So it makes sure that it just wipes the nozzle and nothing else is getting in the way. So if you guys happen to print with these and you end up losing the silicone sock, I highly, highly suggest stopping that print and just waiting until you get a new silicone sock or even buy some extra ones right off the bat, just so you have them because you don't want to go across that and basically kill your motherboard or whatever it may be. That wouldn't be too fun to have a brand new printer that's literally just a brick and you can't print with it anymore. So, but other than that, it's really, really great. We have the linear rail system here, so it glides very, very smoothly. Both of the hot end systems, dual Z axis, so it's always leveled. I wish there was a belt system on the back here, but I kind of understand with the way that they have this set up, that probably isn't going to work very well. That's only one thing I'd like to see a little bit additive with future revisions, I guess. And that's just more or less to make it more structurally sound when it comes to leveling. Like, sure, the dual Zs are a great addition because if a single Z was on here, you probably have a lot of issues with the sagging gantry. Whereas the dual Zs, they help that out a little bit, but if you had a belt linking the two, it would never, ever come unleveled ever again. It would be fantastic to have that option on there or as an upgrade if possible. That would be great. But that's really about the only thing that I think would be a major upgrade that I'd like to see for future reference. Maybe even adding a flex plate. I personally like that type of stuff, specifically the textured PEI. I really, really enjoy having those type of flex plates. I just like the first layer that goes down there. Again, that's just kind of a personal preference. I know a lot of people are going to be like, but glass beds are so much better. That's perfectly fine. If you want to keep the glass bed, that's fine. Just for my personal preference, I'd like a magnetic PEI sheet that I can just flex my print off and be on my next way for the next print. But that's pretty much all I got to say about this. Maybe one more thing I can add on is this does take a full-size SD card, which is kind of nice, but I mean, in this day and age, most of the printers are micro SD cards, so most of us have micro SD readers. And, to have a full size card, it's just like, okay, I have most of my machines that have micro, and then this one has a full. So it's kind of weird, but I think it's a little bit better. Usually those cards are a little bit cheaper than a micro SD card. And I'm not saying like micro SD cards or SD cards in general are expensive, but for some people, that might be a little bit better. I tend to have a lot of various cards around, so it's kind of nice that I have some older full-size USB card or SD cards that I can just throw into the system and start printing with it, no problem. So But yeah, that's pretty much it. We have our basic leveling system that has our knobs. It does have the upgraded yellow springs on it, and yeah, I can't really say too much else of it. Like I said, if you guys really want to take a look at this printer and what it printed, specifically that dragon was just a mind blowing experience for me, and so much so of a mind blowing experience that I messaged Tenlog themselves, and they literally said, like, wait a minute, you printed for 14 days straight a dragon? They're like, nobody's ever done that with our printer. And I'm like, I know, it was a challenge that was brought to me. I threw it on the printer, sized it up to 200%, almost maxed out the build volume. We were close there, and set it to print. And yeah, 14 days later, it did print, and it printed amazingly well. But maybe we'll revisit it again on another printer. I'd like to do that challenge and actually finish it for once. So maybe we'll do that with another printer down the line, or maybe we'll do it with this one again and do some maybe even more multicolor instead of doing two colors. We can do a hot swap or something like that. But hey, you never know. But so far, this printer has been fantastic for me. Anybody that's looking to purchase this printer, I will leave an affiliate link to Amazon in the description here. So if you guys are interested in purchasing the Tenlog D3 PRO, that will be available for you. I highly suggest it if you guys are looking for a dual color printer at this moment. It is by far the best printing experience I've had for a larger build volume printer out of the box. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and until next time, happy printing.